Natural disasters, strikes, sanctions, fires, or insolvencies, corona, Suez Canal issue, the causes of supply chain disruptions are numerous. Globalization is making supply chains susceptible to disruption. Regulations are evolving, and the hyper-connected world means your brand is only one imprudent supplier away from the harm. Together, these forces expose your company to critical threats like contractual penalties, production standstills, drops in sales, and reputational damage. That's the problem. Now, what to do? So, the answer is employ a comprehensive supply chain risk management program that will help you secure supplier relationships, prevent supply bottlenecks, and ensure your company is operating both legally and ethically. To do that, you have to first understand the three phases of risk management life cycle. The first phase is risk identification, second, risk assessment, and third, risk mitigation. Let us walk you through what each of these phases means for the supply chain. The first is risk identification. The only way to address risk is to make sure you are identifying it in the first place. The first phase of the risk management life cycle is to establish a risk profile and then enact active monitoring to keep it up to date. So, how you can do it? First, identify which element of your supply chain to monitor. A critical initial step in risk identification is to determine which segment of your supply chain and how many sub-tiers to actively monitor as part of your risk management program. Typically, these are purchasing volume, effect on sales, scarcity, technology, and patents. Then you need to decide how to measure risk. A risk scorecard is a key tool for assessing the risk profile of an organization or asset. It gives you an easy to understand snapshot of the current risk status of an asset using an established numerical scale so that you can always keep on top of where your risk lies. Then you need to develop a process, preferably automated, for capturing risk data. When it comes to capturing risk data, the volume of data, relevance of data, and standardization of the data are the key factor to consider. After risk identification, the second point is risk assessment. Let us know about the risk assessment. The second essential element of a supply chain risk management program is to assess the impact of potential risk scenarios. In most cases, determining criticality related to a specific product or article is also indispensable. The focus gained through an impact assessment enable adequate and targeted measures to be implemented when a crisis occurs. By this, we can understand what impact a risk event could have on our business. We have to be aware of those partners who have a significant impact on sales, margin, or profit. So let's talk about how to do that. First, we have to create a complete inventory of all your supplier and risk objects. It is very important to know about your risk object by which your supply chain can potentially be disrupted. You have to note down it and keep a updated record of your risk objects. The second thing is identify the key parameter to assess. It can be like total time to recover, degree of suitability, relocation time, impact on corporate image, number of qualified alternative suppliers, number of customers affected, cost for corrective marketing, and sales activities. After identifying the parameter to assess, you need to create a journal risk assessment. The result of your risk assessment combined with the result of risk identification can be used to form a general risk assessment. In this figure, we can see that x-axis is talking about the threat or a risk probability and y-axis is talking about the impact and criticality of that risk. If you can see the circles here, they are showing that this particular risk is falling under which zone. Red zone means it's a high probability, high critical risk. The yellow zone means it is medium probability and medium criticality risk, and the green zone means lower probability and lower criticality risk. So this is how you can create a risk assessment of your supply chain. The third phase of supply chain risk management is risk mitigation. So, monitoring and assessing supply chain risk from the foundation of a comprehensive supply chain risk management program, but without mitigation, you are relegated to the role of a spectator, unprepared to react to a risk event. To complete the supply chain risk management process and minimize the effect of a risk event, a set of pre approved preventive and reactive measures are necessary. These steps provide the basis for addressing risk in a proactive manner using appropriate measures to ensure long term success. A catalog of all risk prevention or crisis response activities action plan should be created and described. For this step, it is useful to group the individual action by topics according to risk factor. For example, natural hazards, political situation, sanctions, working conditions, and strike. You can also take this one step further and assign a responsible party for each action. To ensure fast response in a risk event, we also recommend describing the actual procedure to be followed for each action plan. Ideally, specific recommendations regarding implementation or support should be added to this description. For example, service provider like emergency logistic expert or brokers in the semiconductor or chemical sector who can provide valuable support in crisis situations. Once a risk event occurs, you can use your action plan to decide how to handle the relevant risk. Depending on whether the level of impact is high or low, action plan with appropriate effect should be chosen. Let's take an example. Consider a case where a supplier's production plant is located in an area with a high earthquake risk. What should your framework for preventive action be? For a low impact area, it may be reasonable to decide that the risk of an earthquake hitting the supplier site is accepted. In this case, no action need be defined. For a high impact area, on the other hand, you may want to define some action. For example, establishing an alternative source of supply or taking out CBI, which is contingent business interruption insurance. To implement action planning on a sustainable basis and to ensure long term success, support by top level management is imperative. Resources as well as budget must be made available for implementing preventive actions when planning is possible and managing risk on a reactive basis. Many companies are still neglecting this practice within the framework of risk management and instead allocate most of their budget and resources toward straightforward supplier development program. Consequently, it stands to reason that the first step should be the integration of supplier development and risk management. After all, a large number of measures in supplier development actually having a risk mitigation effect. If you like this information, do like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.